Hello and welcome to Super Switch Headz, the premier Nintendo podcast on all of the internet. My name is Patrick Nisley.
My name is Matthew Stoner.
My name is David Howe, and we are joined by a very special guest tonight. My fucking brother, Justin Howe, is here, ladies.
Hey there.
Thank you for being here.
How you doing, Justin?
Oh,
yeah, I'm doing great. I've been playing a lot of Mario Kart. I'll just say that off the bat.
Perfect. Well, that's why you're here.
Yeah,
this is episode 64, and we're going to be talking about Mario Kart, and in particular, we're going to be talking about Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Some tips and tricks for all of you viewers out there. This episode's been a long time coming. We've been talking about doing it for a long time. Finally, time for us to talk.
Yeah, I've been wanting to do at least a video or something on Mario Kart tips and tricks since before we even did this podcast. So I'm elated to finally get to talk about the ways to better yourself at this game.
Well, how's everybody doing this week? Everybody doing okay?
Doing great. Yeah, I've had a pretty good week. I've seriously lost my mind a couple times this past week, but in this moment right now, I feel great.
Glad to hear that. What about you, Matt?
Yeah, before we started, I was like, "Oh, it's May."
Yeah,
and we went to
it's a goddamn trip.
Shelter in place in like
March,
early March. So it's been almost 2 months.
This is the only world that babies that are a month and a half old have ever known.
You doing okay, Justin?
Yeah.
Good.
Exponential acceleration of time, like you said, it's May. But, if the babies are handling it, then, it's all good.
I think the babies are doing just fine.
Yeah. We might as well just give the world to the babies right now.
I think that's the plan eventually on a long enough time.
The children are our future and our present.
Well, we'll get into Mario Kart in a little bit. We've got a bunch of other stuff to talk about. We're going to be talking about a little follow-up on the Last of Us 2 leak. We've got a lot of leaks for Nintendo, a big Nintendo leak happening, some possible concept art that leaked. So we're gonna get into all that in just a minute. But we wanted to give a real quick shout out to Don Enriquez. Maybe David, you should take this one.
Don Enriquez made the world that I was talking about last week on the Mario Maker episode. It's called Rise of the Forgotten Levels. And I loved it so much, and I actually didn't even realize that it was Don, from Switch Headz, who made the world. So great job. Looking forward to playing a lot more of your stuff going forward. And thanks for reaching out.
Yeah. And if anybody listening today has some maybe tips and tricks for Mario Kart that we didn't include, or any thoughts on any of the things we go over today, let us know, and maybe we'll give you a shout out next time.
But don't write them yet, because we haven't gotten to them yet.
Listen to the whole episode and then respond to us. And we'd of course love it if you'd leave a review or share the podcast with a friend or post a comment somewhere online. That'd be great. And with all that, we'll get into the news.
Sounds great.
So we did get some more information about this. We're a Nintendo podcast, but we're going to talk about some Sony stuff real quick. Just to follow up on what we've been talking about. The Last of Us 2 had a huge leak of a bunch of gameplay and the story and cutscenes and all that kind of stuff. And there was some rumors going around that it was actually a employee of the developer, Naughty Dog, who was upset, or former employee rather. But turns out that it was somebody that hacked into their system, or at least that's the prevailing theory. Sony came out and said it wasn't an employee. And then one of the journalists who actually broke one of the stories about how Naughty Dog is a terrible place to work confirmed that it wasn't, had some sources saying that it was a hacker that got the info from them. So Jason Schreier, formerly of Kotaku, I believe.
That's right. Yeah, he's moving to Bloomberg.
Is he moving to Bloomberg? Is that what it is?
Mm-hmm.
Good for him, I guess.
I think I want to believe this. I don't know why Jason Schreier would lie about it, but it kind of smells like bullshit. It seems like something that they would cover up if it was an employee. You know what I mean? Maybe I'm getting a little too conspiratorial right off the bat.
I think that adds credence to the fact that it's not, that it's him that's doing it. Somebody who's done negative or criticism, I should say, not negative. But
have any of you guys looked at the leaks at this point?
No, I'm trying to avoid that.
I haven't looked at story leaks, but I've read a few like gameplay mechanic leaks and some game options that appear in the game.
From what I hear about the stuff, and I haven't heard any leaks either, but it's going to upset a lot of people. And people are like, some people are even saying that people that have looked at this like just won't even buy the game now. So it makes me very curious as to what this fucking game is going to be like.
Yeah. So we'll see, because that's not too long till that game comes out this summer.
Yeah.
And game that it's out now that we've talked about a bit on the show is Streets of Rage 4. None of us have played it, I don't believe, but Matt and I are talking about maybe playing through it together online. I'm holding you to it, Matt.
It's a date.
It's a date. If you're out there and you've played it, let us know. We'd be curious to hear your experience. Also, the second multiplayer DLC for Luigi's Mansion 3 came out. If you were waiting for that.
I had no idea that happened.
Well, it did. And just like the previous one, it's just for a couple of more mini games for the Scream Park mode and some new costumes. You can be Luigi in like a pirate hat now.
Excellent.
Yay. There was a Switch firmware system update, a minor one, of course. 10.0.2 is what we're using now. I think it just all it did really was fix some sort of drift issue with some Pro Controller, or maybe some sort of Pro Controller.
Yeah, the newest Pro Controllers that have been coming out have been having issues with the 10.0 update, and the left stick will like drift down, I believe. And apparently it was a software fix because they've patched it out with an update. So hopefully that's the case. I haven't bought a Pro Controller in a while, so I can't attest to it, but that's good if you've been having issues.
The Wonderful 101 game, which was supposed to come out in May, the physical edition, at least, is being delayed until late June. So, and that includes the Kickstarter. And I'm going to go ahead and tell y'all, I went ahead and did the Kickstarter for this game.
Oh, you did? I was going to ask.
And I did the physical. So what they're doing is they're delaying it, but they're also going to send us a Steam code, apparently, for the game.
Weird.
And because I really don't want to play it on my PC, though I could, I think I'm going to give that away on the show whenever I get that.
Hell yeah.
So if you're listening and you're excited about that, stay tuned. We'll figure out some way to give that away to a lucky listener who wants it.
Hell yeah. Right here on episode 64, we've started doing giveaways.
Yeah. We started talking about doing them.
Yeah. A while. Yeah. We haven't done it yet.
But that's an understandable delay. And that's nice of them to give out those codes, I guess.
Totally. This is like a free game.
So then we're going to get into some of this leak stuff. This is big. There was a large Nintendo leak of a bunch of Wii, especially related materials, and some Nintendo 64 stuff too. As I understand it, there was some sort of maybe hack. I guess there's been stuff that's been leaking out recently from like 4chan of like old Pokemon games.
That's right.
And it's just kind of trickled out.
Yeah, a bunch of the data from I think Diamond and Pearl have been leaking out like as of about a week ago. And this is apparently the same person that's been hacking in. I was listening to someone talk about it today, and this is a huge deal. This is like the biggest leak in video game history.
Yeah.
That's happened. And it was this weekend. And it's like the entire architecture of the Wii, the entire source code for the Wii, like the iOS and the BIOS and everything of the actual system has leaked out, which has never happened before for any system that I'm aware of, at least in the modern era. And then also, in addition to the N64 stuff, like the beta stuff, a lot of the architecture data and like patented source code for a GameCube also was released.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's a pretty big deal. And I don't think this has ever happened at this rate before.
My understanding is the source of this leak, not necessarily the people that leaked it, but where it came from was Broadon, which is some sort of company that Nintendo worked with to especially develop hardware and maybe some software for the Wii.
Yeah, they were working on the prototype stuff. So like all of this stuff is listed as like the Nintendo Revolution because that's what it was called at the time before it eventually became the Wii.
And if you're interested, there's all kinds of videos and of like tech demos and game demos and unreleased stuff you can watch, as well as if you are into like emulation and stuff. I'm sure this will be big for that crowd. Wii emulation probably just, I don't know that it was bad to begin with, but it probably just got a huge bump from this, I imagine.
Yeah, there's like what this all means for the emulation community is like accuracy, because like emulation tries to emulate the hardware, and then that software version of the hardware emulates the game within it. So it's
Right.
never like accurate. So there's always like sound that's incorrect, or some of the rendering files don't look great, or, various graphic glitches. But this has potential to have a whole new engine to run one with accuracy.
Yeah, I mean, if the emulation and like hacking scene got a hold of this and worked it into the emulators, it would like definitely make them perfect. You know what I mean? Like, because the entire reason that emulators are legal to begin with is that they're kind of reverse engineered, right? Like you're emulating it, not actually doing the source code. Now, the creators of Dolphin, which is the Wii emulator and GameCube emulator that's out there right now, which has already been really, really great, has like 95, 98% compatibility with all the games. They have put out a tweet saying that they will not be looking at the contents of this leak. Because basically, if they use any of the source code from this leak, then they will officially be using stolen Nintendo property in order to run their emulators. So now Dolphin is open source, so there's really nothing stopping someone from going in, checking it out, and making a build of this that uses this emulated stuff. And they could potentially take a glance at it and be like, oh, that's kind of the idea of how this was made, and then move some of their own internal code around. But I think they're kind of scared shitless of doing that because they don't want to cease and desist from Nintendo, since they're already kind of on the edge there.
Yeah, and we know Nintendo is very litigious.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, Dolphin responded to someone's tweet on their Twitter, and they say, in fact, we can't even look at it. Dolphin is only legal because we are clean room reverse engineering the GameCube and Wii. If we use anything from a leak, Dolphin is no longer legal, and Nintendo * will shut us down.
Yeah, so it's tough. Like, definitely stuff is going to happen from this. I think that we're going to be seeing kind of like underground fucking like Wii games coming through, like I think that this is going to affect a lot of people. I think that emulators will be created out of this, but it's like everybody's really scared to look through this, and it's a treasure trove. Like, this is like, and we're just talking about the Wii stuff here. There's like 2 terabytes of data that was taken from Broadon for all these Nintendo systems. And you were talking about benchmarks for the N64, all this really fascinating stuff before the N64 came out. But yeah, everyone's a little scared to go through it. I almost feel a responsibility as one of the hosts of a Nintendo podcast to parse through this shit, but I also don't want to go to jail. So I'm thinking that I won't.
And I guess too, we can speculate that maybe there's more to come. This person has kind of started with Pokemon and then dumped this. So maybe they have more materials.
Yeah, that would be crazy.
We don't know
if they start holding it for like ransom.
Good luck.
Yeah. It'll be the sequel to the Cooking Mama mystery.
Yeah, and maybe on that segue into like someone released a full PC version of Mario 64.
Yeah,
with ray tracing and widescreen support that can have high frame rates, and it runs at like 144 hertz.
And that's unrelated.
That's
right.
These are unrelated because someone decompiled an N64. Now you can play like Mario 64 EXE.
I think we even talked about that on the podcast when that happened.
Yeah, you don't need an emulator to play it.
But now this is the result of that, that they've made this PC port, essentially.
Somebody at my work shared a screenshot of like a hyper anamorphic widescreen running Mario 64, and it was total batshit. It was like 10, 16 by 9s lined up against each other. People are already doing crazy stuff.
What this means for all of us is we can get that, we can play Xenoblade Chronicles in its Wii version .exe with widescreen and ray tracing support. It's coming.
Maybe one day.
Yeah.
Then you get the Nintendo SWAT team banging on your door.
Yeah.
And while we're on Nintendo leaks, there is some concept art that has been floating around now on the internet that is allegedly from a former artist at Retro Studios, showing some, we can say, canceled or never finished games.
Potentially
right.
Assumingly canceled.
Assuming these are all true and canceled and so on and so forth. There's a lot of assumptions here, but there's a canceled Zelda / Chic project and a canceled Boo Boo from Mario series. There's like a lot of concept art around those characters and stuff, as well as some other concept art from
the year is like Zelda was from 2005 to 2008 and Boo was 2006 to 2007.
Right.
So
okay.
So it puts us in this like post GameCube era. Like we're still in the Wii at that point.
Mm-hmm.
It's more Wii leaks going on.
More Wii leaks.
I mean, obviously none of this is verified, and we've heard lots of rumors about what Retro had been working on in this like long drought that they've had between games.
Right.
This stuff looks pretty legit, and there's a lot of art for that Chic game.
Yeah, it looks cool too.
It looked amazing. It's like the Chic game apparently was supposed to be like a kind of action JRPG game where you play as like a Sheikah, basically. And all the art, it looks like it was very lore based. It was based, I think, in the timeline of Zelda where the hero fails in Ocarina of Time or whatever. So like after the big flood in Wind Waker, like, yeah, it looked really fucking cool.
And the Boo art looks interesting too. It's like shows like a graduation of a bunch of Boos. And then like I'm like, what was this game? Like, you know, or the pitch.
Apparently that was supposed to be
a
DS game or like a handheld game. Yeah, that's what I've heard for that one.
Yeah, some of the concept of Boo, it's like Boo in like a scuba gear. There's a piranha plant with a witch hat on a broomstick.
There's a Star of David Boo and a Boo that's crucified on a cross.
Yeah, that was gonna say that's my favorite one. Is the Boo on the cross?
I think that was probably just for fun, but
it's what it says on the caption for that one. But
yeah.
But nonetheless, it is striking.
Yeah. I like that Boo on a cross is labeled Christmas Boo.
Yeah.
Shouldn't it be Easter Boo?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Christian Boo is what it meant to say. But I mean, dude, if anyone from Retro is listening to this right now, like I would buy a fucking coffee table book of concept art from canceled Retro projects, like from I guess Metroid Prime. Or I guess, you know, after Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze and in between this and all the stuff because it seems like they've started 50 projects and canceled a bunch of them. I'm sure they were all very interesting.
And concept art is cool to look at as like, period. But like, you know, you're talking about Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, man. I loved playing that game and getting all those puzzle pieces for that concept art. Like I loved looking at that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
They got a bunch of great artists there.
Yeah.
But check it out. Just check out like a retro concept art Chic Boo. Like Google that. You'll find some of these images. They're pretty fascinating to look at, if not totally saddening that we'll never get to play that game.
And then we've got a bunch of like online event news to go through. Evo 2020 is being moved to online only. So that will be interesting because fighting games online is already a little tough, and as we all know, the Smash Ultimate online isn't always up to par.
Rip Evo.
So it will be interesting to see how well that goes. And then we've got some announcements for like replacements for E3 kind of. EA Play Live is something they've announced. EA, the developers announced this event for June 11th where they're going to theoretically, it sounds like, show off some new games. I remember seeing something recently. I don't have the source on this, but somebody saying there was some sort of leak of EA is kind of putting some titles out on the Switch. I imagine they might be ports, but some sort of conference call leak or something like that. So maybe we have something to look forward to there.
I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah. Then Summer Game Fest got announced. Summer Game Fest is this is a Jeff Keighley thing. We've talked about how he announced this sort of Steam summer event, but this is a broader thing that's happening from May until August. And I don't entirely know that EA thing may be somewhat part of this. I'm not sure.
Is this not the IGN thing that they're doing?
No, this is a months long, and my understanding too is that they're gonna like give us some sort of more schedule-y information very soon about this. I swear I saw that somewhere, but I haven't found any of the info on it. That Steam thing's happening over a specific weekend in June when E3 would have happened, but then all of this is kind of gonna, I think, end around when Gamescom would have happened, like, and via digital thing then too. So I imagine it's giving space for all these developers to have their own things that aren't in conflict with each other, and kind of when they're ready to. So we'll see. I think like CD Projekt Red has already kind of said they're doing a specific like Cyberpunk
I saw
thing.
Sony's on board already. They weren't even on board for E3, so
So we have a lot of news to look forward to over the next coming months, I guess, about new games. So that's cool in lieu of E3. And Xbox also has put out some news that they're going to do a big state of play, probably right around the time this episode comes out, May 7th.
but the day after.
They're going to do a big thing in July. It sounds like a big sort of reveal in July about the Series X and some stuff we might expect there. Sounds like they're really trying to launch the Series X this year. Still, they kind of put that in their news press release about this.
Yeah.
And this thing's going to be called Xbox 2020, where every month, presumably for the rest of the year, they're going to do like an Inside Xbox, where they release information. So
that it's so dope.
Yeah.
How great would that be if we got a Nintendo Direct every month?
Yes. I'd also, though, it makes you think that maybe that's too much. We'll see. Like, if you know what I mean, like how can each month be packed enough? Maybe they have a lot of cards up there.
We'll see. Yeah, I think the one that's coming out tomorrow, if you're listening to this on Wednesday, is mostly third-party stuff. But I think, probably in July or June, we'll see kind of the rumored what are they calling it? The Lockhart, the Xbox Lockhart, which is like kind of their model number for the not quite as powerful the Series X model of Xbox that should be coming out alongside it.
And possibly a download only, digital only console.
Yeah. Series Y is what they're going to call it.
Or Series S is probably would stick with their modern naming.
Yeah. There you go.
Another cool thing about the Microsoft announcement is that they revealed the boot sound and the boot logo for Xbox Series X.
How many SoundCloud rappers are already using that as a sample track?
Nice. Also, there was our friend Sabi, who is a leaker, tweeted out that they had heard that this month Microsoft was originally going to show off Halo, Perfect Dark, and Fable games for this, but that might have changed because of everything going on with COVID and whatnot. But that's a new Fable and Perfect Dark.
Wouldn't be surprised. I've been hearing rumblings about that as well.
Also, when we're talking about new hardware, Facebook/Oculus has been developing a new Quest headset, and it sounds like that has also been impacted by COVID. They were hoping to release that this year, but some information, we were talking about Bloomberg earlier. Bloomberg put out a pretty big report about this, about how they're kind of working on a bunch of different possible iterations of this, and they're probably smaller, better, lighter Quest headsets that are potentially coming out, I would guess maybe next year at this point.
I don't think they need to release that. I don't think like it's that big of a deal that it's not getting released this year. I think Quest is still selling really well. I think the tech is still impressive for most people. So I don't think that they should be really affected by any kind of delay.
Sounds like they've got a lot of cool things that they're working on. We'll see what iteration actually comes to market, but you have that to look forward to. We got some information that there's an Earthbound or Mother book releasing at the end of this year, and in particular, like it's the video game text. It's like the actual like words from the games.
Oh,
like a
interesting.
script book almost. Like
okay,
one of the first books that's ever done this just came out recently. Spider-Man, the PlayStation game, they released a script book. No, that hasn't really happened before, and so this is really fascinating. I don't know if it'll come out in English or if I assume it's just Japanese.
The one thing I've always wanted whenever playing a game is if I could just read what they're saying and not play the game at all. So this is perfect for me.
I think from like at least for this, I don't know what this is going to look like. At least for the Spider-Man book, what's cool about it, I think, is like it's like getting your hands on like a movie script or whatever, you know. And as a fan, like those are more common now and you can find them. But like as a fan of video games, I don't know what a video game script looks like. Obviously, this
That's
is
a good
not
point.
exactly what it looks like because this is the final version. It sure went through a bajillion changes, but like it's really interesting stuff to see this. And I'm sorry to talk about that, but they also said that there's other news to come potentially related to the Earthbound or Mother series, and so everybody's freaking out about that.
I mean, to that point, Patrick, local comedian for Austin now lives in LA, Justin Swallow. He has a Back to the Future script that one of the directors, it's like in this binder, and it's the actual script, and he let me borrow it, and I geeked out about it for like several weeks, and it's like signed, and there's like notes and lines that are cut,
right,
and specific instances of parts, and it's fucking incredible.
Like a shooting script. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah,
now you just got to get the script to the Telltale Back to the Future game.
Man, that guy's voice is perfect, Marty McFly.
Yeah, it's a cool game. I like that game a lot.
And we've continually been talking recently about how well Nintendo is doing just with Animal Crossing and with Switch sales. There's been several articles and from mainstream news publications, CNN and Reuters have been putting out articles about how they're just quarantine bestsellers and that the Nintendo is seeing Wii level type profits. So it sounds like Nintendo's doing as good as it's ever done right now.
Yeah, and we'll find out very soon, not to steal your transition from you here, Patrick, but you got the financial briefing coming up like within a week, right?
Theoretically. They were going to follow. So Japan state of emergency was supposed to end, I think, May 7th, and Nintendo pushed back their financial briefing out of respect or just because of the situation till after that. But Japan literally like yesterday, the day before we're recording this, maybe today even, has extended their state of emergency to the end of the month. So I don't know what that means. I don't know if Nintendo's going to push it back again or just give it. I imagine they will probably push it back again. So unfortunately, I think we're waiting longer.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of feeds into another piece of news we have on here too, is like, basically like Japan is not as like, from what I've been hearing about all these reports, like especially with the potential direct being pushed back, like, which is the next piece of news you have on here, is like, Japan is not used to working from home. Like the work kind of attitude in Japan is very much like face to face. Everybody commutes on the train, gets together. So like working from home has been a difficult transition for a lot of companies in Japan, allegedly, from what I've heard. So it would make sense that they're kind of struggling to get everything up to pace to where they would need to do some of these normal investor calls and even prepping for a direct, you know?
Yeah, that was surprising to me. I think you'd think that you think of Japan at least, or I do, as a very technological forward society, but it sounds like from at least some of the articles I've read, like you said, the reliance on face-to-face things is really important. So that's a different cultural thing going on there. And like you said, it sounds like the rumor is, I think it's fairly well confirmed because they've talked to developers that they are not going to hold a direct in June. So we have no Nintendo Direct to look forward to in June, if we're to believe these rumors. And that's from them telling people that I guess we're going to be in direct, featured in a June Direct.
Right.
That it sounds like they told them that, which is very nice, so that they can announce their games when they want to, I guess.
Yeah, they basically they released them from the NDA or whatever of not talking about their own game until Nintendo does.
Yeah, so that also makes you think, if there is a direct, is it going to really only hit us with the Nintendo stuff? Are we going to hear about everything else first? What does that mean? It's even farther out.
How are you guys doing hearing this news? Are you guys okay knowing there's not going to be a June? It's a little shocking, right? It's like a little, I don't like it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's weird. It's weird that we're not going to get any Nintendo news. We've had E3 for, I don't know, since I was a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And know that we won't get any major Nintendo news, which was like what I look forward to the most.
Right.
It's weird not to have anything in this time frame.
Yeah.
Hopefully they kind of release some of their own first party stuff around the time on their own kind of Twitter platforms or whatever. Because it's like whenever you're doing a direct, like that has to be like Nintendo of Japan coordinating with Nintendo of Europe, coordinating with Nintendo of America, and everybody gets all the stuff translated and shot and, release dates fixed. You know, I think hopefully they can still get the information they'd be getting out just through their own platforms. You know what I mean?
Which makes you wonder, will there be only one Nintendo Direct Mini this year?
Mm-hmm. What if it's about Clubhouse Games 51 Worldwide Classics?
Yes.
What if you're right, though, David?
I want to see a trailer for Clubhouse Games 52 Worldwide Classics. And I want to see that in June.
What if you're right, David, that there's no Nintendo Direct because they want to, give us something in June. And so they give us some info about some, Wii U port, and then they don't have enough for a Direct. So then it's just a trailer for whatever big Mario game or whatever.
I'm just trying to find some little bit of optimism in this news because it's deflating.
Let me switch it
I mean? Like, yeah. We'll see. I mean, like right after basically this leak came out that the Direct is not going to be happening in June, the release date for the Deadly Premonition sequel was released. So I think that might have been in this Direct, you know what I mean? That might have been like, and it's out now sort of thing. And now they're like, all right, well, we're just going to drum up hype now, because we're not going to get the same thing. Yeah.
Nintendo news has been really weird this year.
Or
at least their first party stuff.
I think we could get some Nintendo Direct news or other game related news depending on the social media response to the Summer Games Festival.
Yeah.
Or like Inside Xbox. Because if Nintendo's killing it with Animal Crossing right now and Switch sales, they're on top of the world.
Right.
Yeah. Which means they can do whatever they want, release news or release no news. But if someone else takes like the reins from Nintendo during these next few months, then I could see them releasing more news.
To that point too, Matt, one thing that Nintendo has been doing recently is they've been pushing all their old games big time. Like there was this Mario Tennis Aces tournament they had with like celebrities and tennis players playing it. They're doing the Splatoon 2 one-off Splatfest. They did the ARMS free trial thing. I think they're really aware that they're doing so well, and because they can't maybe put out some other big blockbuster wide appeal game right now, they're trying to really push all their old games and do that instead.
Which means we won't get new news.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I think that this is basically just like, I think by the time 2021 rolls around, we're going to be like, oh man, that was a weird year, 2020, where like nothing happened. You know what I mean? Like I think for the rest of this year, stuff is going to be pretty grim, and it's going to be, I've been watching Community a lot, and like season 4, when they had a different showrunner, like in season 5, they referred to that as the gas leak year, because everything was just kind of weird and everybody was a little different. I think we're going to think of 2020 as the gas leak year, and stuff will get back to normal next year, but it's going to be weird for the rest of the year for sure.
This is the year of the backlog. If you have any unplayed games, break them out, beat them.
and the year of Clubhouse Games 51 Worldwide Classics.
Yeah, I want to work through my Steam backlog of like 300 games, but instead I'm just going to play Solitaire on my Switch for the rest of 2020.
Nice. I think with that sentiment, we will close the news section then, and we'll take a break. And when we come back, we're going to give you some nice tips and tricks for your Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. And now we are going to talk about Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, some tips and tricks. This weekend, May 8th through 10th, there's an online tournament for Mario Kart, the Mario Kart North America Open for May 2020. And we've been discussing having a Mario Kart episode since the beginning, but it hasn't happened. And there's obviously no Nintendo Direct coming up, no Nintendo big news. So it seemed like a good time for us to pull out a classic game that is, at least until we find out that new financial briefing, the best-selling game on the Switch.
That's true. Yeah.
But
this might be the weekend that Mario Kart is overtaken by Animal Crossing.
Right. But before we get into it, real quick caveat, Matthew, you don't like Mario Kart. Is that true?
This is true.
What's your fucking deal, man?
I'm glad we're starting the tips and tricks about why I don't like Mario Kart.
We got to get it out of the way.
Oh, no, it's fine. I don't like Mario Kart Racing, but I like battle mode.
Okay. I can see that.
So that's because like growing up I played Mario 64 with my friends and we played exclusively battle mode.
That's a really interesting point. I kind of feel the same way until this Mario Kart. This Mario Kart really sold me on the racing part of it.
Yeah. Honestly, like I have not really played that much of a battle mode since N64. I think the racing is just so tight in this game and they really like optimized it that it's been my go-to mode for sure.
Yeah, and I can't quite figure out what it is, but I think generally like racing games aren't for me.
Yeah.
So that's why you want F-Zero to be a bounty hunting game.
Of course, yeah. I'll take anything better than a goddamn racing game.
Just like we've talked about recently, I like arcade style sports or racing games, and Mario Kart is a more arcade style racing game than like obviously sim or something,
Right, for sure. Justin, I know like we wanted you on this episode because you're probably the best Mario Kart player that I personally know. But I know you also like to play other kinds of racing games. So would you like consider yourself a fan of the racing game genre?
Yeah, definitely. It's so funny to hear your comments and your reserves about racing games because I'm like, I've played like 300 something hours of Mario Kart. I don't think I've played battle mode once.
Yeah, same.
That's funny.
So it's like, I've always kind of been like battle mode, like, wow.
That's funny.
But I mean, like, I get it. I mean, I played it on the N64. I just haven't touched it. But yeah, I mean, I love racing games. I used to race a go-kart, way back when. So
yeah, I feel like for like Mario Kart, like for any game, there's a like levels of experience. There's like a beginner, an amateur, an expert, and then like pro level. And that threshold between some of those levels from like amateur to expert, like for Mario Kart, I just can't figure out what that is. And I mean, I don't like Mario Kart also because I'm bad at it.
Yeah. Well, hopefully after you hear all our tips and tricks in this episode, it'll make you a better player and you'll get more out of the franchise.
Yeah. Like I understand the basic mechanics similar to like fighting games, like playing a Tekken game. I get it. And I get the bread and butter combos in Dragon Ball Fighters, but something about Mario Kart with addition of like random chance with like items, it like doesn't play well with me. I can't be consistent. I can't play consistently well. So I realize part of the problem is me.
Interesting. Well, obviously there's a lot of Mario Kart games that have existed starting with the Super Nintendo, and maybe some future episode will go into the best of and the history of it. But Mario Kart 8...
Matt will love that episode.
Yeah, maybe we never will for that reason. But,
no, you could, as long as I get a Xenoblade episode, then we're fine.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
But Mario Kart 8 came out for the Wii U, and then for the Switch, rather than a new Mario Kart, they ported it over and made it a deluxe version, which included all the DLC. And Mario Kart 8 is kind of the one that broke open the formula of non-Mario characters being in the game. And we also got an additional Inkling character in the deluxe version. And the battle mode got improved for you, Matt, because it was kind of a shitty battle mode. But what's funny is
you would do it on the tracks before.
I still thought Mario Kart 8 was the best Mario Kart before this, and now Mario Kart 8, I still think Deluxe rather is clearly the best one because of the battle mode fix.
It's the best Mario Kart of all time.
But we haven't gotten any DLC or big updates for the game since it really launched, other than Labo and a Breath of the Wild bike, which isn't too exciting. But that's sort of the history of the game, of that game specifically, rather. And then I'm not as good at Mario Kart. David, anytime we've played, you've smoked me. And then it sounds like, like if you were to play against Justin, you would lose. So I would love to turn this over to y'all and let y'all lead the tips and tricks section.
For sure. I want to start with like saying for the record, like I beat Justin sometimes. Okay. Like it's not just like 100% of the time he kicks my ass. But
stopped playing in the past like 6 months, but
yeah, that's true. I was playing a little bit to get ready for this episode, but yeah, basically what we wanted to do, since this game is like out, it's like one of the best selling Switch games out there right now. pretty much most people own this game. It's got an incredible attach rate. We wanted to give you guys just a wide swath of tips and tricks from a beginner to an advanced to an expert level on just kind of the best ways to improve your game, get more out of the game, enjoy it. And I guess we'll kind of go back and forth. I guess first thing I wanted to talk about, and you've got a note on here as well, Justin, is like something that Mario Kart 8 does. And I'm surprised that a lot of people don't even realize this is you can turn on and off auto steering and auto acceleration and tilt controls, obviously. And usually if you're playing first player, that setting will stick around. But if you're ever playing second player on somebody else's system, make sure you check those settings and play the way you want to play. I can't do the auto steering personally. It makes it to where drifting is really difficult. But you have a note on here, Justin, about using auto steering to kind of get better and know the levels.
Yeah. And I mean, that's probably one of the most daunting things is seeing how many stages come in this game right off the bat. Auto steering is going to save you when you have no idea what any of the courses are or what direction anything is going to be. But using that to your advantage.
Do you think that that's like a crutch though, and it won't aid you in the long run?
No, I mean, just the more you play the different levels, you realize that, oh, there's a right turn here and I shouldn't go to the left or else I'll lose 7 places.
Right. I think that there should be no shame in using auto steering. Like I know some people that are like newer to the game. They're like, well, I don't want to use the auto steering, but then they're just like falling off constantly. You know what I mean? So it's like, until you kind of know the lay of the land a little bit more, turn on auto steering, but eventually you're going to want to turn that off. Most of the kind of tips and tricks we're going to be telling you aren't going to apply if you do have auto steering and auto acceleration turned on. But yeah, don't be ashamed of using that at the beginning. It's going to keep you competitively viable and make you enjoy the game a little bit more.
That makes sense because you're using auto steering as a tool to get better at the game rather than to use auto steering to just play the game. Like it's got intent.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's kind of the nuanced difference.
Yeah, bit of a training wheels type of approach.
Nice. So before y'all move on, do you think that applies then to like playing with no items and stuff like that? Do you think it would be good to turn that off?
I personally think no, but well, Justin, you have a note on here about how playing offline is really rewarding and like doing time trials and stuff like that. Do you want to speak on that?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's where you take the chance variable out of the game, which is a big part of it. So that's when you are able to just completely lose focus of that, and then work on just making every corner of every lap better, type of approach. And there's so much that you could dive into that's where you get the edge. It's like, of course you're going to, get screwed because it's Mario Kart sometimes. Right. If you make it the best possible chance for you to do the best you can, that's all you can really hope for.
Well, that's also a really good way to learn where all the shortcuts are and everything in a stage when the track isn't covered in other racers and you're not getting blasted with a lightning bolt or something like that.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, I think the by far the best resource that you could do is just look at world record lap times, of time trials. Mm-hmm. And then you just see you could see how they use the whole engine and to their favor just to go as fast as possible.
Yeah. For sure.
Then,
another beginner tip that I would that I find a lot of people don't realize is that kind of how coins work in this game. So coins weren't in Mario Kart 64, and so I think because of that, a lot of people like aren't familiar with what they do. But basically, the way that coins work is coins will increase your maximum speed. So if you can have up to 10, and there are coins all throughout the track, and you pretty much as soon as possible want to have 10 coins, because then your cart will be going as fast as possible. Then it kind of becomes a little bit of a strategy, and there's kind of a coin meta, I would say. Like as to sometimes there's a really tight corner that you want to take to kind of get ahead of everybody. But if you have 0 coins, sometimes you're going to want to swing out around that corner and grab some of those coins in order to get you up to 10. Right? I mean, would you agree with that, Justin? Yeah,
totally. I mean, it's more incremental than you think, but if you do 3 laps with 0 coins, it's going to be, 5 or 6 seconds you're going to lose from having 10 coins. So
right.
it's kind of a give or take. It's like you don't want to go way out of your way, or else you're going to lose 3 seconds, and it's just not worth it.
Right.
And there are some coins that are easier to get than others. So
yeah, some just aren't worth it if you can cut across.
My Mario Kart was the Super Nintendo one, and it had coins. There were really no coins in the N64 one.
Yeah, there weren't coins in the N64 one,
Mario
and
Kart
I
7,
think even
or DS at least. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So they brought it back, I think, in Mario Kart 7, and then it's stuck around in Mario Kart 8. But it's a great mechanic, and I'm glad it's there.
Yeah, I played so much of the Super Nintendo one, I didn't even realize there weren't ones in the N64. Sorry to interrupt. That just blew my mind.
No, it's okay.
I mean, we're in the beginner phase, and I didn't know how coins work. So
exactly. See, this is why I wanted to include this stuff. It's like sometimes people just don't realize. You know what I mean? Another one that's kind of obvious, to some people, but maybe not to others, is that whenever you're using an item, holding the item button is like clutch and pretty much the main way that you should be using most items. Like, especially if you're in the first like 3 to 4 places, you're going to be wanting to drag stuff behind you at all times. So like, I would say like the majority of the time that I'm playing Mario Kart, like I've got the left item button held down. You know what I mean? You always want to have, your behind kind of covered in case someone's going to be shooting a red shell at you, because that's the stuff that you just can't really see coming. And sometimes you can, and we'll get into that in advanced techniques, but holding items behind you is super, super important. And not just like, you have to fight that urge to like constantly throw your items as soon as you get them and like use them defensively.
There's a tip there that maybe not everybody realizes too, which is that if you have a green shell or certain other items like a bomb, you can hold back and drag it behind you instead of just throw it forward. Right.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
And so the benefit of that then is that if a red shell hits you, it hits that first. But I don't think everybody even realizes you can throw certain items backwards.
Seeing a lot of newer people playing the game, it's like items are really key, especially when you're just starting, because you are usually further back and you just get much better items when you're lower in the standings. So once you're down there, just get as many items as you can and pretty much use every single one that you can. Yeah, because they are huge.
Experiment with them too.
Yeah,
because you'll get some different uses out of them. Like the piranha plant is one of my favorite new items in this game. It's like, if the piranha plant will auto target characters around you and chomp them, but also if you just mash the item button once you have it, it'll bite the road in front of you and pull you forward.
I didn't know that.
Just be using all these. Oh yeah, it's
cool.
It's an excellent item. I've got a couple other ones here. Drift around every single corner, pretty much. Justin might disagree with this a little bit, but for the most part, drifting is like the most important mechanic in Mario Kart, and it has been since the Super Nintendo. Basically, drifting is you press the hop button and turn into a turn, and you'll get sparks of different colors behind you depending on how long you hold the drift and how you kind of move. You'll have to kind of experiment with it to get the real feel, but the longer that you hold a drift and the more colorful the sparks, a better boost you'll get. And you really can't win matches or win races without drifting. So you should be drifting around every single corner.
I totally agree.
Okay, he totally agrees.
The hop on the jumps.
Yeah, and then that's another one too. Not just drifting, but there's a trick mechanic that was introduced in Mario Kart 7 that is also in Mario Kart 8, where if you press the hop button, the same button that you use to drift, as you're going over a jump, you'll do a little trick, and then whenever you land, you get a boost. This not only counts for jumps and ramps that are built into the game, but anytime your cart goes airborne at all and then touches the ground again, you can do a trick during that time. So little bumps in the road, or like on Rainbow Road, wherever a thwomp hits it and the whole course kind of moves up and down. If you do a jump off of those ramps, wherever you would come off the ground, you'll get boosts, and that really starts to add up as well. Oh, also, I did also want to say, when we're talking about boosts, if you're at max coins, coins will give you little tiny micro boosts. So be aware of that sometimes. They'll give you like just the smallest little thing. So if you find yourself getting a coin or you have an extra coin item, sometimes it's best to use in that way. But last thing I'll say in beginner, and Justin, you might disagree with this, but I find that it's best to find a build that works for you, like a racer that works for you, that's the right kind of like weight, either a bike or a car and a certain kind of tires that works for you, and stick with that for a while. I think that there's a people often want to like experiment with a lot of different kinds of builds, but then you're not going to like necessarily get better at all the stages if you're having to constantly change your play style between all these different builds. In my opinion, I think you should just pick a build, stick with it, learn how to best play the game, and then once you're really good, then start experimenting with the build that works best for you.
I don't know what Justin thinks, but I agree with that in most games and sports and life, right? Like eliminate variables to figure out how to play something. And then when you've eliminated variables, then start introducing them. You know what I mean? Or when you've gotten a baseline like level or something. Yeah.
For sure.
And kind of on that same note, and also kind of how it works in real life is once you start seeing a lot of people with the same carts, then you start thinking, oh, maybe that cart is the best cart. And you're like, wow, these people have the same 3, configurations set up. And so,
well, that kind of brings us into advanced techniques, because there is like an objective best build, right, Justin? Like I'm not even totally 100% sure what this is, but I know that you use the build. Is it Iggy? Is that right?
I use Morton, or you just want the heaviest character because that is the one that has the best top speed.
That's correct. Yeah.
I remember on the podcast, like a year or maybe when we first started doing it, there was somebody that did like some sort of data analysis of people that win and the like best objective best stuff. And it kind of came down to heaviest characters and then a few different kinds of vehicles and stuff. Yeah.
And not only do you have the highest top speed as a heavy character, your acceleration isn't going to be as good with the heavy characters. Smaller characters are better for that. But once you've gotten good at the game, you want to have the best top speed because you're going to be running into walls less because you're better at the game. But in addition to top speed with heavy carts can also knock into less heavy characters and really move them around quite a bit. Like if you like, especially at the beginning of a race when everybody's all kind of clumped together. If you see like a Toad or something and you're a fucking Bowser, if you slam into that guy, like you're not going to be that effective, but he's going to be really thrown off. So that could be helpful in races as well.
Do you think that means then if you're new to the game, it's probably good to play a light character so that you can get your acceleration up? Or do you think it's kind of like what we're talking about, just to start with a heavy character and learn that?
I would say, start with the character. Like, I mean, I was a big Mario Kart 7 player, and I realized very quickly that wasn't the right cart for me. But, experiment with something lighter. And it kind of depends on if you have auto steering on too, because like David said, running into walls, running into grass, you're just going to lose so much speed.
Right.
So kind of see what works for you, but, definitely play the game offline and kind of work some of that stuff out. I mean, single player mode is so much fun. I play it all the time.
Yeah. And like you said, it's the best way to get better, right?
Yeah, totally.
Some other advanced stuff, and this is kind of something we've already touched on a little bit, but red shells are so tempting to shoot out in front of you, right? Red shells, as opposed to green shells, obviously lock on to whoever's in front of you and will hit them. But as far as I've found, the majority of times you don't want to be shooting red shells. You want to hold that behind you, right? And Justin, you might disagree a little bit here, but especially with the kind of tip that you have about the ghosting. But most of the time, if you're trying to get up to like second or first place, whoever's up in that place is going to have a shell behind them that will block your red shell. So unless you have 2 and you're able to clear that out and then shoot another one, it's not usually very beneficial to shoot a red shell, because then more often than not, you shoot it, nothing happens, and then you're open for an attack from behind. Yeah. So always try to fight that urge to shoot the red shell. You're going to want to pop it off right away because the guy's right in front of you and you could, maybe just get him. But like more often than not, it bites me in the ass and I find myself all of a sudden falling back to 11th place whenever the big kind of swath of everybody passes me on the track.
Yeah. And I mean, that's just a kind of getting into the more item management type of thing. Shoot the red shell right before you're about to get a double item box in front. So that way you clear whoever, if they got a coin and a banana in first place, you cleared the banana away. That way you have 2 fresh items. But yeah, just, hit that reverse camera button and try to see what items people have around you. Cause that'll help.
That's a good point.
What to do.
Yeah. Cause in Mario Kart 8, like you can see when people are dragging items behind them, but also even if they're not dragging an item behind them, you see what the character is holding in their hand. They make it very clear. That reverse camera button, I think it's X on the controller, is super, super important. I use it all the time. If somebody's coming up behind you with a red shell, you'll see the little indicator, but so often it helps to just kind of figure out where you are on the track. Because looking at the top-down map isn't usually helpful a lot of the time.
It's very tricky, though.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's definitely an advanced tip, right? To be able to switch camera.
Right, but
but it's a good thing to practice.
You'd be surprised how much information you can get by pressing X for like half a second. Yeah. You just tap it for a second, just see what's behind you. Your brain recognizes exactly where the person is. You don't have to like hold it and try to drive blind. Like that is obviously not a good idea, but it's like a little glance into a rearview mirror. You know what I mean? And it's very, very, very helpful to look behind you.
It's kind of like at the end of every race, once I like line up to the to the finish line, I'm more concerned with what's behind me than what's in front of me. So I'd even use my reverse camera pretty much for that whole last straightaway.
Yeah, I do that as well. Another kind of advanced trick here is like very often in places 1st through 3rd, you're looking for that banana, right? You're looking for that green shell or red shell that you can drag behind you to stop incoming red shells from hitting you. But a lot of the time you're going to be getting bombs or fireballs, right? And bombs are actually really good at protecting you from red shells. You just have to drop them before they hit you. So a lot of times it's best to like, if you see a red shell is coming, wait a couple seconds until right before you think it's going to hit you, drop it so the explosion doesn't blow you up whenever the red shell hits it. Because that's the risk you run by just dragging a bomb behind you. But if you drop it behind you, usually you're able to kind of intercept that bomb and then get far enough away from the explosion so it doesn't hurt you.
That's a timing issue. Also be mindful if you have a bomb and you're holding it behind you, that anyone who runs into you is going to blow both of you up. So if you're really in a tight pack situation, kind of figure out something to do with that bomb real quick.
And if you're in first place, obviously the kind of the most valuable item to have in first place is the super horn, right? Which is a very trigger happy item. It's very easy whenever I get the super horn to just use it right away, because whenever you get an item, you generally immediately hold item to drag it behind you. But if you press L, it's just going to fire the horn. But the horn will stop blue shells. And the horn will really help you out a lot when you're in first place, but you really have to get that timing down. That's the one that really has taken me a while to get the hang of. This might be like a little bit more of a expert technique, but you had a method of also getting away from blue shells, Justin. That wasn't the super horn.
Yeah, I was curious if there are any.
Yeah. So there's actually two, the blue horn, and also if you have a mushroom and you're about to get blue shelled, if you time it to where the blue shell is, it does its circle above you and then it comes down. As it's coming down, you actually boost out of the range of the blue shell hit. So,
which is fucking cool.
Is there any way to do that with like a drifting or a trick boost? No,
it's only just a mushroom. Yeah.
Yeah. And then obviously if you have a star, the blue shell is not going to affect you. Yeah. The star kind of is the best protector in the game. But talking about mushrooms, Justin, you have on here kind of the best times to use mushrooms. Because I think the instinct is like when you're on a straightaway to use the mushroom, because then you're not going to go into the grass. But that's really not the best time to use the mushrooms. Can you kind of lay out the best time to use this?
Sure. And a lot of it, a lot of this game is just about keeping your momentum going, because there's a lot of ways to slow you down and there's only so many ways to get you back up to top speed. So by and far the best way is to cut across, the inside of a turn through grass or something if you use a mushroom, or you can go through mud, or you could avoid certain, jumps or something like that. Any way to kind of shorten that line around the turn. If you think of Baby Park, it's the perfect kind of, you can cut across the part that slows you down and it makes the turn, that much shorter. Right. But also I use mushrooms a lot, and this is maybe a little more defensively, to if you get red shelled and you're a heavy character, right after you get red shelled, you could just mushroom back up to speed. So it's either I keep it for a good shortcut, or if I mess up and put some wheels on grass,
if you fall off the course or something like that and Lakitu brings you back, you're going to need that mushroom to not lose like valuable seconds.
Another good one too is if someone is in front of you with a green shell and you're like racing really close to each other and you just don't want to bump into them or their green shell, mushroom past
that's
them.
a good one.
Just get out of the way and then watch out for them.
Yeah, that's a great idea. In addition to that, in holding mushrooms until you get hit, also, if you're already at max coins and you have coins in your inventory, don't just use those right away for that micro boost. It's really not worth it. Wait until you get hit, and you lose 3 coins whenever you get hit to use those coins and get back up to almost where you were. Or like you said, if you're about to hit a double item box and you have coins in your inventory, use them right before you hit that double item box. Double item box, so you can clear them out.
Well, it's something I'm surprised we haven't said, and this is for the beginner, so we're kind of jumping back to it, but the starting boost, y'all didn't talk about that. I think a lot of people probably know about that, but maybe if you don't know about coins or you don't know about, some of that beginner stuff like drifting and stuff, you probably don't know about the boost at the beginning. And maybe you've been frustrated.
Every Mario Kart game has a unique time to start accelerating before the race begins, right? Some of them have been after the 1, some of them have been considerably after the 2. But generally, because it always gives you a 3, 2, 1, right? It counts down, correct? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I've found that you want to press accelerate like almost immediately after the 2 shows up on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
So it's basically like 3, 2, press 1, go. You know what I mean? And just start holding it right there.
And if you do it wrong, you get...
That's a good call, Patrick.
You get punished, too, so...
Yeah.
You get more punished for jumping the gun than you do for starting it a little bit late, though. So it's okay to give yourself a little bit of hair, but generally, as soon as the 2 pops up, press it, because, it'll take a second for your thumb to get to the button anyway. So as long as you're not pressing it, like, exactly on the 2, then you're in the clear.
Yeah, I think there's some tier of how much boost you get. There's either... like a 1, 2, or 3, basically, on when you time it, and the further you wait before you blow up.
Cool. Sorry,
I've got on here something we kind of talked about already, but it's basically you want to balance when you're going to grab coins or cut corners. Like we've talked about a lot, and this is true in any racing game. You're going to want to try to optimize the place on the track that you are turning around. You know what I mean? If a track is turning to the right, you want to get as close to the side of the track as you can to make the distance between where you are and where you're going as small as possible, right? But oftentimes those coins are going to be out in the middle of the track. So usually if that's the case, you're going to want to totally avoid those and just take the shortest path possible. And if you have a mushroom that can totally cut through the grass or whatever, like you said, Justin, that's even more ideal.
Yeah, and just look at, like I said, the best thing that you could do to get, the racing lines down are just to look at world record runs on YouTube, and they're really fun to watch. And that kind of shows you, where to line up each corner and whatnot.
Yeah. And a lot of other racing games, like simulation racing games, they'll often have like that kind of green line on the track that shows you exactly the angles you should be approaching turns and whatever. That isn't really a thing in Mario Kart. The closest thing to that is like racing against ghosts, right? And kind of seeing what they do in the ghost mode. So yeah, use that to your advantage. Learn the best kind of angles at which to take turns, exactly when to start drifting, depending on what kind of kart you're using. And that's going to really help you out quite a bit.
There's a lot of like, you could take the left path or the right path, and it's like, oh, let me check the time trials to see what they do. And I'll just do that 99% of the time.
You've got a great note here, Justin, about like where to place your defensive item. When you're racing, like you say, having it in the second slot here. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah. So, the easiest way and the most straightforward way to think about it is if you're in first place and you have a banana or a coin followed by a banana. You don't want to just use the coin and then get the banana behind you, because the ghost is an element in this game that steals items, and they always steal the first item that's in your block. So, if you're in first place, a good, place to be is to have a coin and then a banana. That way, if you get an item stolen before someone hits you with a red shell, your banana comes up and you have that. And if you see a red shell coming, you can just cycle through the coin.
Right. But that's kind of a risky maneuver though, right? Because it's like, because often whenever you see a red shell coming in, it's like panic can set in. You know what I mean? And then like pressing the coin really fast and then getting to the banana, sometimes you don't feel like you really have enough time. Although usually you do. It's just kind of that panic overtakes you and can make it a little bit difficult. So that's something you're going to want to practice. That's definitely a more advanced technique. But yeah, being aware of what the ghost can steal from you so it doesn't take your only defensive item and then you're helpless is very important.
Kind of sticking with the advanced techniques, I was going to say, so there's flying in this game that came out in 7, I believe. And so in this game, flying is actually slower than racing on the ground.
Oh, that's good to know. I didn't know that.
Speed. So don't try to kind of extend your flights as long as possible because you're actually going to slow yourself down.
So is it better to purposefully then just land as soon as possible, generally? Or?
Pretty much.
Yeah. Just point
there's
your
some
nose
ways
down.
You can cut. Nose down and get on the ground as soon as possible. And
and not only are you going to be faster on the ground, but also whenever you're on the ground, you could start drifting again and getting those extra boosts, which you can't really get in the air.
Mm-hmm.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
I didn't either before we had this talk. Do you want to move on to the expert techniques here, Justin?
Yeah, sure.
So if you're listening to this part, it means that you've mastered everything we've just talked about.
Done.
But there's a bunch of really fine-tuned min-max shit that you can do in this game to really get the most out of your races. And if you really want to be the best out there online and win this weekend at the Mario Kart tournament, then these are going to be the ones you're going to want to do. Do you want to start with some of these, Justin?
Sure. And a lot of this is just, trying to get, half a second faster, in a lot of ways. So something to keep in mind is whenever you turn at all without drifting, you slow yourself down. So it's really good once you get a handle of all the tracks to line yourself up to where you want to be for the next corner and see if you can come out of the last corner lined up that way, and then just don't touch the steering block and just have the A button pressed until you get to that corner. And that's a big part of keeping your speed up is you don't, the less you hit the steering stick, the better.
Right. Even like a little micro adjustment might kind of throw you off.
And if you need to adjust, you need to adjust. But yeah, try to make that as minimal as possible. Something totally. I've also done is after boosting out of a turn, it's often quicker to hop while placing, trying to set yourself up to the next turn, because you hit that line faster. So after a boost, I will often hop the other direction to kind of get myself lined up to where I need to be. That way I'm already lined up when I hit the ground. Yeah, when I get that little mini boost and I'm ready to just kind of go that way.
That is something I have not done that I'm going to start doing as soon as I play this game.
Yeah, and it's going to be, it's a huge learning process, and it just involves hopping all over the place and thinking you're going faster until you kind of fine tune that. But it's really fun once you do, because you can kind of take all these different lines that you didn't think were possible earlier. Another great way to kind of practice that is if you're doing a turn and you're not hitting all 3 boost tiers, I guess, and getting to purple. Kind of once you pass the turn, just keep drifting until you hit your ultra boost or whatever, and then let that go.
Yeah.
Even if you're headed towards the side of the track, because you can just hop once or twice to get you lined up again, and now all of a sudden you have the full boost.
Yeah, that's something that was in older Mario Kart games, specifically Mario Kart DS was something called snaking, and that's where they would basically be. There would be like a wide straightaway that players would often like do a drift on before they hit the side, get the boost, do another drift in the other direction, and they're just drifting down these straightaways, right? That's something that's pretty much been removed in this game. But as you're coming out of turns, the same kind of idea still totally, It's basically that idea, but at the end of turns.
Hey, can I interject and ask a quick question?
Yeah, totally.
If y'all already talked about this and I somehow missed it, I apologize, but drafting, can you explain how that works in this game a little bit? Because I know
we haven't talked about that at all.
occasionally draft off of somebody in Mario Kart, but I never really intentionally do it. And I don't know exactly how close or if it's risky or what have you.
It's generally not too risky to draft behind somebody unless they're holding like a green shell or a banana. And then if you get too close, then it's pretty dangerous. But drafting is something that just happens in physics in real life. It's basically whenever you're following behind somebody, you have less air resistance against you, like less wind resistance because they're kind of building a little tunnel in front of you. And you will get a boost if you follow someone close enough for long enough. Do you have any like specific tips on drafting, Justin?
No, I mean, that's pretty much it. Try to just stick directly behind them. Something that you can do is, defensively counter the person trying to draft off of you. So if you look behind you and you see someone right behind you, you can kind of take a different line real quick. That way they don't jump ahead of you and grab.
Or shoot your fucking green shell back if they're right up on your ass.
Yeah, that's another reason of holding on to a coin and then an item is good because they just have a coin. But then you can kind of
right
in there and get them.
Yeah.
They don't see that you're carrying that item.
They don't
behind
see the
you,
second
and then
item.
all of a sudden, you blow them. Yeah. But there's risk reward to that too because maybe they have a red shell that you don't know about. You've got something here about not fretting about being in last place for the first 2 laps. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Sure. And this is kind of a little bit newer territory for me. But I mean, the items that you get at the end of the pack are a lot better than the items in the front. So sometimes it's better to stay around the back of the pack until the last lap or so. And then a lot of the times you'll get like 3 mushrooms and a star. And that's a great way to boost yourself up while protecting yourself. So something that I do if I'm not having a good start is try not to just stay in 6th place because you're just going to get the worst of the worst being right in the middle.
Yeah. That's truly the no man's land of Mario Kart.
Yeah, it's so terrible.
Yeah.
It's so terrible.
Yeah.
So, let's say you have the 3 mushrooms and a star. So you boost yourself up. And then right before, I try to time it right before a item box, especially a double item box, to use a star. And that way you hit the star and then you get a fresh new 2 sets of items.
The star is kind of unique in that way, where it's like an item that can be active and then you can pick up other items while you're using it. Most other items aren't that way. Yeah.
Unlike the bullet bill where you can still pick up an item, but you only pick up your second item because it still occupies that spot when you're using it opposed to the star. And then a lot of the times you are boosting yourself up, you get into 8th or something, you get the last item box, which are usually, I think they're more powerful item boxes as the race goes on, especially if you're in 7th. And then you can get another star then, and then try to use that immediately because then someone might lightning, and then all of a sudden you could win the race from 7th just because you used a star and someone else
right,
lightning.
and the lightning doesn't affect you.
Yeah.
This is something that I don't really do. I don't think I'm quite at the level yet. Like my kind of strategy right now is to like get first as soon as I can and then hold it with defensive items for as long as I can. And I think for most people that is still going to suffice, but definitely there's a large risk reward factor to kind of holding back for as long as you can and then jumping forward into the 3rd lap.
Yeah. Sometimes you have no choice because you try to get in first and be defensive, but you're in 8th place.
Sometimes God just fucking hates you and shits on your life and it totally tilts you for the rest of the race. And that's just kind of the way it is. I had a note on here about just like practicing wellness while racing, and trying not to get too tilted when shit goes down, because like as soon as you start getting frustrated in this game, then it just like affects everything and you start making a bunch of stupid mistakes. And it's like knowing early on that like shit is just going to go down in Mario Kart sometimes. And you just have to like keep a cool head, and the cooler head that you have while you're racing, the better you'll do, because like you'll just get items that increase your health. But if you're like flipping out and you're like, oh, this fucking sucks, then you're just going to keep sucking for the rest of the race.
That's a good point for any competitive game, right? Like,
yeah.
Quit when you're, you might as well quit if you're that worked up, right? And take a break.
Yeah. Take a break, come back to it. You'll be all right. Or just like, just let the auto steer do it. Turn on auto accelerate and auto steer and just put the controller down. We have a couple more here. You have one about choosing courses, Justin, when you're playing online.
Oh yeah. I don't know how much this is really going to affect stuff, but there's some courses, Mount Wario in particular, for any of those who know, there's 3 or 4 coins right off the bat that if you start in first, you're pretty much guaranteed to get all of those coins, and everybody else doesn't get any coins. So if you win a race online and you see the option to choose the next course, try to choose one that's going to be most beneficial to you from starting where you're starting. So if you're starting from last, maybe Baby Park is a good one to pick, even though I don't really condone that. Ever.
We do have a legendary tier of tips, and the only one in there is never pick Baby Park. Baby Park does fucking suck.
I don't think it's even tournament legal.
It's the most casual.
I don't think it's
levels.
I don't even really consider it a course. Like, I really don't like that course. I moan every time it comes on. My favorite one that you have on here, Justin, is such a practical one. I hope you don't mind if I steal it from you. But you have on here that the best way to grind up your score without slipping backwards and losing points is to figure out what time 5 to 7 a.m. is in Tokyo and race during that time.
Yeah.
Because like Mario Kart, it's true, like it's very, very popular in Japan. And a lot of the best drivers out there are Japanese, and they just grind this game constantly and play constantly and are amazing at it. And avoiding Japanese players is the best way to get your score increased.
Yeah. I'd say like 90% of the time, or, 80-90% of the time I'm playing at 10 p.m. on the West Coast, it's me in a room of, 11 people from Japan playing. It's like, oh no, this is and they all have the same line, and it's like, well, that's the right line, type of approach. It's like, whew. So. Yeah, for sure. Although I think the people that play a shit ton of Mario Kart in Japan maybe also stay up super late at night playing Mario Kart in Japan. So there's really no way to avoid it. Yeah, that's another high variance tip. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that about does it for the tips and tricks. I hope did you guys learn something
Definitely
today about?
Yeah, I learned about coins.
There were lots of things that y'all said. I'm going to have to listen to it again.
There's a ton of stuff. Yeah. And feel free to just, whenever you're playing Mario Kart online, just take this podcast and put it on a loop and just listen to it over and over again to really drive home all the tips and tricks that you're going to be needing to play this game. But yeah, thanks a lot, Justin, for sharing some of your knowledge. There's definitely a lot of stuff in there that I wasn't like necessarily cognizant of when I'm racing. And I think that a lot of these tricks are going to be very helpful. And hopefully if you're at any level of Mario Kart expertise, this kind of helps you a little bit. And, impress your friends when you're, when COVID is done and you're playing at their house, you can bet big money on your Mario Kart skills.
There you go.
Cool. Well, then we'll take a very brief break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about all the games that we have been playing, including or other than Mario Kart. I wanted to start because I actually, not because of this episode, have been playing a lot of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe on the Switch. My son just recently decided completely of his own accord that he wanted to start playing it. He hadn't played it in a long time. And so I've been teaching him to play the game. This is perfect, y'all. The timing of this is going to be better. Some of this stuff I've been like holding off on teaching him, like the drifting and stuff like that, till he gets a little more comfortable. But he's been starting to win some 50cc races with easy AI on. So I'm like, it might be time to start teaching him about drifting and jumping and getting coins and that kind of stuff. So
teach him about the coin meta and when best to drift on the chicanes.
I will shame him when he picks Baby Park. Thanks to y'all. But I've been playing a decent amount of Mario Kart because of that. And then the other thing he and I have been doing that I wanted to share with y'all is we've been playing the Robot Labo a game. We finally sat down and built the robot. I've had it for a really long time. And we built it, and the Robot Labo is the worst Labo, y'all. Hands down. It is the coolest build and the coolest one in theory. Maybe not, but like in theory it seems cool, but the actual mini game's not that great. Like we built it and he played it for a tiny bit, and we were both kind of like, well, okay. Like
yeah,
that was fun.
I can see that. It's like the only thing in the kit. It's not like there's a lot of variety there.
Yeah. And it doesn't, it's just like, I don't think it holds your attention for that long, and it's hard to get on and off and all that. And then David, I played this with you. I've been playing some other games too, like Smash and Animal Crossing and all that. But me, and a bunch of other Switch heads, we played some Killer Queen Black the other day.
Yeah, that was a blast.
We've been regularly organizing sort of Sunday night Switch heads. So if that intrigues you, multiplayer games, join the Discord or our Facebook group and stay in the loop. We'll be playing Mario Kart maybe soon as well.
Yeah, I think this weekend with the tournament going on.
Yeah. So Killer Queen Black was awesome to play with a bunch of people online, but yeah, that's what I've been.
Yeah, I was surprised like how smooth it was to team up with, like, I think we had 6 people at the max.
Yeah.
But getting 6 people online, all on different Switches into a party, I think we had like 1 or 2 connection errors, but other than that, it played really, really smoothly. So yeah, definitely, I want to play more Killer Queen while we're in quarantine, because that was a lot of fun to play multiplayer.
Me too.
I guess I'll go next because I was playing some of that as well. But yeah, I've been playing some Mario Kart 8, some Mario Maker 2, some Tetris 99. I've been doing all the regulars, right? And of course, obviously some Animal Crossing. I've been chilling out a little on Animal Crossing, but like I have found like 1 or 2 days during this past week where I was like, oh fuck, I played like 6 hours of Animal Crossing today. But for the most part, I pick it up and play for a little bit and put it down. What I did, the new game I did pick up this week, I got Indivisible, the RPG that we were talking about last week, that kind of ghost dropped against the developer's wishes on the Switch. And I'm not super far in it, but I love it so far. The game, as we talked about already, has this gorgeous 2D animated art style, and it is kind of a side-scrolling RPG. It's not a top-down 3D RPG. It's more like you're going left and right. It's got these kind of Metroidvania elements. But then the way that the combat works is really, really cool. It's like the combat begins and it's turn-based, but it's also kind of active time battle like you see in some of like Final Fantasy 6 and 7, where you kind of have your attacks recharge. But the way that it works is you'll attack with like a party of 4, and each face button on the controller controls one of the members of the party. So if you want to attack with one of the people, you press Y. And then if you want to modify that attack, you press like Y plus up or Y plus down. And then if you want to attack with somebody else, you press A or B. So you can attack with all 4 people at once by just mashing, but everybody kind of recharges their attacks at different times. So it makes it this like really engaging, really fast paced, like turn-based RPG battle system that's really unique. And I'd never really seen that on any other games. I think the thing that it kind of reminded me most of was like MOBAs, like League of Legends, or like, more specifically, I guess like Awesome Knots, was like a 2D MOBA that kind of would map your different attacks to different stuff, and they all have different regens. But yeah, so I'm really enjoying it so far. And the opening anime cinematic is amazing and reminded me of playing Chrono Cross back in the day, where they kind of had a big montage of different shit going on with really great music. It's amazing so far. I love it.
The 2 magical words Chrono Cross makes me want to play that goddamn game.
Yeah. But that's what I've been playing this week. What about you, Matt?
I'll go next. I think a couple weeks ago I said I got Just Cause 4 for free on Epic Game Store. That game is not great, first of all. But I played it only under 2 conditions. One, ultra high definition graphics using reshade and trainers, which gives you unlimited ammo and unlimited missiles. So all I did was fly around in a jetpack and unload missiles on unsuspecting towns.
I don't know what you're talking about, man. That sounds great.
Yeah. It's only great under those circumstances. But it's fine. I beat all of Just Cause 4.
Congratulations.
Just thank you.
I didn't really like this game that much, but I 100%.
Yeah. It was really like, it's like dumb fun. I would not recommend it if it was more than $10.
Yeah.
Yeah. But other than that, I got it for free. So yeah, it doesn't matter. And last week, did I say that I beat Final Fantasy VII?
I don't think you had beaten it.
Okay. I beat Final Fantasy VII Remake. David, once you get further, I have really strong and mixed reactions to it. So I've been playing a lot of the post-game fights and the virtual fights, using the Shinra virtual battles. And so some of those New Game Plus battles are just like excruciatingly difficult, and you really got to min-max your materia.
I'm kind of looking forward to that kind of stuff, though, because I do think a lot of the battles are pretty easy once you figure out, like when you're playing in normal mode, like once you kind of figure out the best ways to, like when you go into a menu, when you just mash attack, especially when you block, right? Because it's not like a lot of other action games where like dodge is the most important thing. Like block is super important in this game. But I'm looking forward to some really challenging battles in the post game.
Yeah, it's really good. And like, I wish I would have learned Tifa more throughout the main point of the game, because Tifa is like the most complex character and the most fun to play.
She's all combo based, right?
Yeah, she's all combo based, and how you min-max her combos for your specials and your abilities is incredible. But some of the story elements and how it introduces new ideas to the franchise, I slowly realized that I'm more connected to the Final Fantasy VII characters, like Cloud, than I am of like Midgar or the world.
Right.
But I didn't come to that conclusion until I was sitting in that last cinematic about the elements that they changed and the elements that they kept the same. It's a really complex and really good ending. And if you're playing it out there, let me know what you think.
Yeah, I didn't really have much of a chance to play it this past week just because I was playing Indivisible and a lot of other games. And I just had a lot of work that I had to do this weekend. But yeah, whenever I finish the game, I'd love to talk to you about it because I am really enjoying it so far.
Yeah, it's been, man. Yeah, I can't wait to like talk about it more because it's so fresh right now. But some of the story is like what it could mean for the future of the franchise is super exciting.
Maybe we do a spoiler episode sometime and just discuss it.
Let's do it. And then Chrono Cross.
And then
Chrono Cross
and then we have a book club of Chrono Cross. Yeah. What about you, Justin? You been playing anything other than Mario Kart recently?
I've been on Master Quest on Breath of the
very
Wild.
good.
Talk about bestsellers for the Switch, right?
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Trial of the Sword is very difficult. So
on Master Mode or whatever?
On Master Mode, yeah. So
is this your second playthrough, or?
This is my second playthrough, yeah.
You sent me some videos of you doing some pretty cool bike tricks in Master Mode.
Oh, yeah. That's fun to play around with. Yeah. I can't get enough of that game. That game just puts me in a really good headspace.
For Christmas, Justin, I bought you a Mario Kart steering wheel, which I think that you have refused to use for Mario Kart, and that's fine. I completely understand that. But did you end up using it for that rally game that you've been playing?
Yeah, I've used it for V-Rally 4, which has been a really fun experience.
Is that the Hori Mario Kart racing wheel or whatever they came out with last year?
Yeah.
It's not the pro one. It's like the Fisher Price Kids version.
Okay.
Yeah, it's got like the beep horn in the middle.
It's like a candy red.
Yeah.
It's really nice.
So you got a little bit of use out of that, at least. I just wanted to call you out on the podcast about it.
Yeah. Shout out to V-Rally 4 for all those who wish Mario Kart was a battle game.
Yeah. Also, shout out to our sister, Jennifer. I don't know if she's listening to this, but Jennifer is also very, very good at Mario Kart. The Howes are a family of good Mario Kart players, and we'll have Jennifer on sometime when we do an even more advanced tips and tricks episode.
Even more advanced. Wow.
Well, if we ever need to do a tips and tricks on Skyrim episode, we'll have Jennifer on.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I guess that just about does it for the episode.
Very nice. Yeah. Thanks so much, Justin, for coming on to the show.
Thanks, Justin.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
You're the best brother I ever had.
Thanks to Corduroy for doing our music. Sorry to Chris McKeever, we did not play Disney Tsum Tsum Festival. If all goes according to plan, next week we're going to be talking about boss fights. and
That's the
that in
plan.
video games, like what makes a good boss fight, that kind of stuff, how Nintendo handles it. If you want to find me online, I am PDYX.
You can find me on Twitter, who recently got retweeted by the Joseph Pera of Joe Pera Talks With You.
Oh.
I'm on Twitter, MATHYOU.
Wow, Senpai noticed you. If you want to find me online, I'm everywhere at Monolith Fiji. And what about you, Justin? Where can people find you?
I'm not online, but if you just ask people, Jerp is usually what I go by. So
Very nice.
You got an Instagram, right? You should pimp that Insta.
sure, yeah, it's Houston Zhao.
There you go.
It's like there you go.
There you go. He's a great photographer, great cinematographer. And we also, we got, Justin worked with me on Call Me Brother, the movie that I directed. And Justin shot that movie, and that's going to be coming out this summer, too. So if you liked us on this podcast, you'll definitely like that movie. Ladies and gentlemen, that just about does it for this episode. Episode 64, Nintendo 64 of Super Switch Headz.
That's right.
We never talked about that.
Oh, my gosh.
Thank you very much for listening. We hope that you were able to take some tips and tricks with you and better yourself at Mario Kart. We'll be back with a great episode next week. We love you very much. Everybody stay safe out there. Wash your hands. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.